Good morning. Hey,
How
Mike.
are you?
All right. How are you?
Good. It is good to be here for another Friday.
It is great to be here on another Friday. And we're in what, like the third day of fall?
We
I had
are.
to wear bright colors today because it's so beautiful out, but it is long sleeve. And I love fall. So I'm really excited. Week 3 of college football, too, Michael. Or week
It
4.
is. It
Week
is.
4.
Lots of good stuff happening.
Lots of good stuff happening. Well, it's great to have everybody with us. If you're watching us from Twitter or on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, it's great to have you here with us. Remember, if you want to ask any questions, throw any things in the chat, throw it. We will be watching the chat during the show. As well, is Michael, I love for you to always give a 30 to 60 second just quick of why experience matters and why we started Experience Friday Live for
Yeah.
our listeners today.
Yeah. We get to talk to a lot of people about experience. And, even if it's a trendy thing, and like some of our guests have talked about, is just, a bunch of people that are trying to catch a wave. Experience matters, and it not just matters because it's the right thing to do. Creating the right experiences for your consumers, customers, patients, your vendors, your employees, all of those folks who work together for what we call an experience ecosystem. And what we hear 99% of the time is that these experiences are created in silos, which means they're created in a vacuum. And well-meaning people who are doing their best to do what's right end up creating processes that make it harder to actually deliver good experiences. And so that's why we're so focused on this experience ecosystem, the touch points, the experiences, the interactions, the people, the systems, all those things that come together, both internally and externally, come together to create experiences for everybody in your ecosystem. And that's not easy stuff. So that's what we're doing. We're trying each week to dig a little bit deeper with some amazing experts
Yeah,
into what it could be if we actually function as an ecosystem.
I love it. I love it, Michael. And you know what? I even forgot to mention, like, you and I got to do our first in-person event this week,
We
which
did.
was actually the Patient Experience Symposium in Boston. And I know we were both a little hesitant even about going, but it was a really well done event. We felt very safe, felt very protected in all of this. But it was great to be back with colleagues again and hearing, from the healthcare side, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit here today. And when I introduce our guest with us as well today, but a couple other quick announcements. Next week, you do not want to miss the podcast. If you do not follow the podcast, the Combustion Chronicles, oops, wrong one. Next week, Emily Chang. If you have not met Emily or follow her on LinkedIn or social, go follow her. She is going to be talking to us on culture, leadership, and social legacy. And you might, if you follow me on LinkedIn, saw a few weeks ago I posted a picture of her book, The Spare Room, and her legacy, her social legacy that she's bringing to the world. And then next Friday, really excited. I made a big boo-boo last week, but about announcing him for this week, but it's actually for next week. Shep Hyken will be with us. His podcast downloaded this week. If you have not met Shep, just an amazing guy, Chief Amazement Officer. And just this week, I'll be back. I posted with Arnold on LinkedIn his new book, and we're going to be discussing his new book with him next week. But without any further ado, we are really excited. We have Adrianna Sperkacz, I always try to say this right, currently serves as the National Director for Patient Services at Sanitas U.S.A. And as an innovator who's passionate about revolutionizing healthcare, she empowers patients, their families, and entire communities to achieve recovery and optimal wellness of the mind, body, and spirit. So we want to welcome to the studio with us, Adrianna. Hi.
Hey,
Hello,
thank you
Adrianna.
for having me, guys.
Yeah, wow, what a bio. And it's so awesome that you're on here. And you were just sharing with Michael and I before we actually came on, how we met a few years ago, and you actually showed a prototype of some work we had done several years ago. But, Adrianna, share with our listeners, what is it that led you into patient experience, and what keeps you there?
That's a great question. I stumbled upon patient experience, and for those of you who work in patient experience, it's been more important as time goes by. And so a couple of years ago, there was a hospital who didn't have any experience in, patient experience, patient services. And they pulled me in from concierge medicine to say, okay, how can we make not only the experience of everybody better with patients and staff, but actually have a direct effect on quality? Because I think a lot of experience ties hand in hand to quality as well. I kind of stumbled upon this role, but within the last couple of years, it's really been more important for healthcare to focus on that, because now with healthcare, that's how we are getting reimbursed, and a lot of quality measures are now being focused on that. I'm happy to say that what keeps me here is to understand that patient experience is not necessarily about taking care of the patient. It goes deeper into understanding the people system that you guys mentioned earlier, making sure that the employees are happy so that they can give that care to the patients. And what really keeps me here is to understand that the patient experience doesn't only affect the organization that we're dealing with, but you're creating a better humanity, right? So a lot of what we're doing right now is teaching our employees and teaching staff why we're here, the value in giving care, and finding them, connecting to purpose, like Disney teaches, right? Task versus purpose. And when you really see that, you can see almost like a ripple effect of goodness that you bring out, just because people understand the importance of the things that they do every day. And so what I've seen in the organizations that I've worked with, a flow of changing the culture, and not only changing the culture, but changing how you're coming to work, and then how what you're taking home with you too. And so ideally, I think with a bigger focus in patient experience, we're more in tune to what we're doing, who we are. That's not only for what we do at our workplace, but us as a human, connecting to us and humanizing the experience that we have in it as a whole.
Yeah, it's so simple, right?
Yeah.
So easy. I bet you can do that in a couple of weeks, and then you're moving on, right?
The hardest part is converting. I think a lot of people, with how things have been with COVID, and just such an emotional roller coaster for so many people. Staffing has been an issue also lately in the last year. It's really hard to find, to keep people connected. So I think the magic of the experience is keeping them connected to their purpose, so that they're not only just, doing a job, but they're also innovating and seeing how they can be better and bringing that to the table, and really changing the experience for the company, right? Because you can't do patient experience alone. It's everyone's a part of that experience. With all the touch points that we have.
Exactly, and let's talk about that, Shawn. I know we have the Stoke and Adrianna, your innovation I know is important to you, right?
Yeah.
But innovation is such a loaded word. So I love our Stoke for today, which is a Jeff Bezos quotes of, if you're competitor focused, you have to wait until there's a competitor doing something. Being customer focused allows you to be more pioneering. And like you just said, customer for you in a patient experience role, I mean, the customer is the patient, but it's also the families, right? And the doctors and the medical staff and the non-medical staff and the vendors and so I love that word pioneering, and would love to know what does that look like if you're going to be a pioneer in this world of patient experience? What does that look like?
A lot of things are changing. I'm going to go from where we were to where we're going and where we need to go. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, and even in organizations today, we make decisions administratively, and that those trickle down. in healthcare, that's changed dramatically to where now a lot of organizations have these patient councils. They're bringing patients into the mix, listening to what the patients want. Because at the end of the day, if you listen to what the patients want, you can build the best product, right? I think healthcare overall has been so dramatically different when it comes to patient experience. You have these the event that you went to last week or this week in Boston, where I'm sure you have the top healthcare organizations, and they're using digital tools and they're above and beyond and really engaging with the patients. But a lot of the healthcare in general, maybe the doctors that most of us go to may not have that integration of innovation. And I think that's really important, because without listening to the patients, without integrating to the digital tools that we have today, you find yourself losing patients and patients going elsewhere. I think pioneering really comes to, at the end of the day, the voice of the patient. A lot of what we've done is making, all of the quality surveys are very important, really bringing the voice of the patient into the tasks that we have and implementations that we have. A lot of times when we implement, how many times do we do something and end up having to go back and change it? What I've seen is the magic of actually bringing all the parties together, the patients, the doctors, the administration, to really build a product that's not something that anybody's done before, because we're actually bringing all the stakeholders together to build something that's above and beyond what we could have done on our own. There is a vast difference in healthcare, though. I'm sure you guys can see, depending on where you are in the nation and what they have available when it comes to digital tools. That makes a big difference for us.
Yeah, we hear all the time from healthcare professionals that everyone feels that healthcare is 20 to 30 years behind, and can only be compared to like government agencies. But, it's been really inspiring recently, Shawn, at least for me, that we've heard some really big patient experience, customer experience wins, including the VA, which is, a government hospital, right, system. So I think it's really important for you to start by focusing on designing for the actual patient.
Yeah,
I think that's tremendous.
Well, and I think, and part of that, Adrianna, we met with the deputy director, got to have a conversation with her from the VA this week, and the VA took a hit several years ago around patient experience in their hospitals, right? And they doubled down and made a massive change in 5 years. So this is what, people talk about the government moving slow, or we're in healthcare and we can't do this and we can't do this, and regulations tell us that we can do this, and right? But the VA as a whole doubled down, made a huge change that now the big healthcare systems are looking to them. Like, what did you do? But you said it earlier, and obviously, people that watch this and know who I am know that I worked for Disney. And even with what I see the VA doing, I heard it come out of you. Michael, we did this with, a major retailer for 2 years, that, purpose over task. Purpose over task. That doesn't mean that we don't need tasks, right? Or it doesn't mean that we don't need processes. Or, as you said, it doesn't mean, we work in healthcare. We obviously need safety, quality, right? But how do you do safety and quality purposefully, not driven by task? And I would love to hear you started to go a little bit in there, but like, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean to your organization when you're saying we're going to lead with purpose over task?
I'm going to give you a great example from a training that we did this week. Our organization just upgraded from having a greeter, that we changed the role from greeter to patient experience professional. I mean, it's a name change, but it's been empowering for them, right? So they shared with us this week, instead of us being a security guard, which I was like, security guard, you're not a security guard. You should be empowered to do anything that the patients ask you for. We're removing them from feeling like they are stuck within this box right by the door, to really feel empowered to say, okay, let me scan the room, understand the environment of care. I see that there's water over there. It's not the cleaning lady who's going to clean it up. It's me, because somebody's going to slip, because it's safety. It's a matter of scanning the room to understand, okay, emotional intelligence of the people's faces that are there, and the tapping on the leg that the gentleman has over there because they've been waiting for a half an hour. It's really interesting to see this because unless you connect to them and tell them it's okay to take that extra step, it's almost like it needs to be written for them to actually do it. And so accountability is really important when it comes to having them understand that it's not just a matter of, okay, I have A, B, C to do today, and then I'm done for the day. Because that doesn't necessarily, experience will never improve with that. And I think we actually have a bad experience when we're sticking to the script, right? And I'm finding ourselves even recreating policies as a result of that, because if we don't have this sense of why, if the whole organization is not behind that, including the leaders, then we're going to be stuck in just what we have in, just at the task at hand, right?
Well, and you said two things there again that. And no surprise, and I know you studied a lot around the experience space, but, Lee Cockrell from Disney, Creating the Magic, wrote a book, and we've got him coming on the podcast in a few weeks, and he's like, let people know what their job is, what they need to do, and then give them the freedom to do it. Right. Yes. That's what Disney does beautiful. So you empowering someone to a patient experience professional gave them, and you said, here's what we need you to do. Much like Michael, we did with care hosts in the retailer, right? You're a care host. That's very different to me. Like, oh, you mean I'm in charge of that person's care? And that care actually starts when they enter the door, right? Like, I love your purpose around that. I love your excitement around that because it just needs to happen.
Let's talk about those, since you are in the trench doing this, right? It's one thing to talk about, it's a whole nother thing to do it. And that's what we've been focusing on this show, is hearing from people that are actually doing it to be able to pass along good best practices. So, I mean, it's one thing just to decide that you're going to change people's titles, right? It's one thing to decide that you're going to empower them. It's another thing to actually do it, to do the empowerment and support them in it. And, change is not always easy for some people. So talk about a little bit about that. Talk about that journey of change, of where there was resistance or where there was acceptance, and how you navigated that.
I've had the pleasure of doing that in a few organizations, and I have to tell you that a lot of it comes to leading by example. I'm very passionate in this, and I will not stop until I have at least the person I'm speaking to understand where my passion comes from. At the end of the day, regardless of what organization you work for, there is a sense of purpose. And the biggest challenge I think we've experienced in healthcare has been that disruption, right? How do we open people's eyes to where we need to go in our vision? A few things that have really helped is transparency. I think a big focus for us has been understanding the data, providing, going deeper into the data so that we can actually have, at the end of the day, patient experience you can look at the data from how patients are feeling and their perception. And if we can implement something to help wait times, for example, we should see that effect on the quality surveys eventually, right? Leading by example is really important. Transparency is really important. I think really making the staff happy. Staff need to feel like they are empowered. I think it's been really hard because I think healthcare overall has experienced challenges with staffing, the unemployment that we've experienced with COVID, and how now things have changed. And there's a big burnout overall. And so what I'm seeing in a lot of organizations, from insurance companies that are trying to see, okay, how can we give back and partner with our, how can we better partner with our, I can't think of the word, but the biggest focus now, what I'm seeing is really giving back to the staff, having them feel not only like that they belong, but that they're empowered to be able to do more. People are really burned out and there's really nothing left to give. So our biggest focus really has been working, with HR on, despite not necessarily the I don't know, pizza parties that we can provide for them, but really implementing things like better recognition policies, creating processes that will improve the experience. Because a lot of times what we do is we think giving a pat on the back will help, and it will. But if we don't have processes that support our staff, they can't give the experience that they want to give. So our biggest focus has been really leading by example, making sure that the processes that we have are supporting the staff, meaning if we get a recognition, they're burned out, we get an automatic memo to thank them, as opposed to us having to find that recognition, have the manager go up to them and thank them. So I think it's really, really important to have that process in place so that it's not necessarily us remembering to follow up on things to make sure that they feel appreciated, but that our system actually is doing that on a daily basis with the staff.
Well, and I think you just nailed something which will lead us right into some trend conversation here before we close out the show. But, there's now a conference happening in January, specifically in healthcare, around burnout and resilience. We have a very dear friend of ours in Vegas. It's CEO in the organization Cure for the Kids. And the last time Michael and I were with her, or talked with her, she said to us, we are not doing any major new initiatives until everyone on our staff gets a good vacation. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, everyone needs a vacation before we do another big another big change in the organization. So let's ask you this question, Adrianna. What trends about customer experience or patient experience, either one, do we need to be paying attention to for 2022 and beyond, in your opinion? What trends do you see happening?
Post-COVID, digitalization for sure. I think patients now have everything in their fingertips. I'm going to choose a doctor based on what Google shares with me, so those social media reviews need to be good. What we're finding is patients' expectations post-COVID are so much higher, right? It's crazy how much it's really advanced patient experience in the last couple of years as a result. What's really important is patient engagement, especially now that a lot of things are more remote and more digitalized. How do we keep the patient engaged in their care and loyal to the company, right? Because they can go anywhere they want. It's really important for our healthcare system to really have that control of the patient, because when you have patients going to too many different organizations, you don't really have an understanding of their care as a whole. So a company that I work for example, is like a one-stop shop in healthcare. So we can do the x-rays, we can do the labs. And I think that's really important, because when you have too much fragmentation, the quality of care is not really there, because this one doctor didn't talk to this doctor before the patient comes to the other doctor to ask for something that they don't know what's really going on. Aside from that, I think transparency is really important. Patients now, with increased digitalization, they're able to look things up, right? And more patients are doing that. And so big complaints that we have is when we're not transparent, patients are not happy with us, they don't trust us. So I'm seeing more organizations that are more transparent with patients, not only necessarily with pricing, but more so with processes and the overall flow. If you go to Mayo Clinic, for example, every touch point you have, they're letting you know what's next, and then overall what's going to be happening. I think that patients really want that. The voice of the patients actually also is something that more organizations I'm seeing are listening to. There's something called Patient and Family Advocacy Councils, PFACs. I'm seeing that that's a lot more popular in the last couple of years in healthcare, where you're taking patients and you're sitting with doctors, sitting with leaders, a CEO, all together to understand how we can improve. And if we don't do that, how can you continue to succeed, right? So there's been a lot more focus on actually bringing the patient in for improvements and improving the digital services that we have, because with where things have been going and how what patients' expectations are today post-COVID, if you don't end up doing that, you're going to fall behind.
Love it. That's some great stuff that we are going to keep our eye on too. We've heard that a lot. Michael, any closing remarks from Adrianna for you before we start to close out the show?
Not beyond thank you. I really appreciate your speed to talk about the end user. I think that's just so key, that a lot of folks are still missing, or they talk about it, but they're not really doing it, right? And it sounds like you're actually doing it, and leading by example is I think a big takeaway in terms of people who are frustrated. What do? You just need to get in there and lead.
Well, Adrianna, how, if people want to know more about what you do or follow you and your work, how can they do it? What's the best way?
I believe LinkedIn. LinkedIn has all my information. It has email. It has a phone number. You're welcome to call me. What I really see that we're doing is LinkedIn's been a great opportunity for a lot of patient experience professionals to get together and learn from each other. So I'm all about that, very open to that. And it's really the only way we can improve together.
Well, love it. Thank you so much. Hang out here with us. We're going to do just some closing things. And then we will come back and chit chat with you. Just to remember, if you want to connect with Michael and I, you can connect on LinkedIn, Shawn Nason or Michael Harper. Our podcast, The Combustion Chronicles, as I mentioned, this week was Shep Hyken. Next week is Emily Chang. As well, mofi.co, not .com, but .co, or ShawnNason.com. Or you can send us an email at hello@mofi.co. And most importantly, if you play in the experience ecosystem, just like Adrianna, we want you. We want you on the show. We want to hear your story. And it doesn't have to be just healthcare. It can be across any industry, anything. So again, Adrianna, thank you. Hang out here with us as we close out the show. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week.